We're here.
We are, I think.
We are.
Hello, 2020.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors Advanced Self-Publishing Salon in January 2020. I'm Joanna Penn here with Orna Ross. Hi, Orna.
Hi, Joanna, and hello, everyone. Welcome.
Yes, welcome to 2020 and the next decade, which is very exciting. We, of course, in our last show before Christmas, we looked back at a decade of self-publishing, and that was a pretty major show. So we're promising you a major show today as well, looking forward into the next decade. Of course, this won't be so accurate, because hindsight is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And anyone who makes predictions about self-publishing is asking to get things wrong, because it keeps surprising us, doesn't it?
It does. So we're going to say this is more of a trends discussion, because we can follow trends into the future and kind of make some assumptions about where those trends might go. But before we get into it, as ever, we are writers first, and we always like to give you a bit of an update. So, Orna, what's been happening with the Alliance and also with you?
Yeah, well, holidays we had, which was nice.
I've forgotten them already.
Therefore, closing down my brain. But yeah, our tasks at the moment are very much about upgrading. January is always for us back over our guides, because you know what we're talking about there. Self-publishing keeps changing, and things that you think are kind of set for some time, you find when you read back the guidebooks that they're not. So we're still upgrading website, team, and books. Will be what January is all about. And me personally, then I am getting ready for February, Valentine's Day, with a book of love poetry, which is with the editor now at the moment. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I failed on 2 deadlines, which is not like me at all. I was going to get my book Audio for Authors, which is about audiobooks, podcasting and voice technologies, to my proofreader / comments and beta readers and stuff before Christmas. Failed miserably. Promised between Christmas and New Year, failed miserably, but managed it this weekend as we speak. So and mainly because the book turned into something far more than I expected, and I'm really proud of it, actually. I know you've got an early copy, you haven't read it yet, so you don't have to comment. But I'm really proud of it. And I'm not sure if I disappeared or Orna disappeared. We shall see.
Okay.
I think, okay, I don't know who disappeared.
Okay, we've got to stop disappearing.
Well, I was here.
I was just saying how much I'm looking forward to your book, because, well, obviously audio is the thing of the moment for indies, which we're going to be talking a bit more about as we discuss the trends, but also obviously you're the audio queen. So and what's exciting about the book, I haven't read it in full, but I do know that it's bringing everything together, because there are a few books out there about how to do an audio book. There are a few books out there about how to do a podcast, how to do marketing through audio, but you're bringing it all together, right?
Yes, I am. That's my goal. So we'll probably do another audio focus show on that. If maybe you have questions and stuff, we can go through. So that'll be probably April's show. Yes, Orna disappeared. So if it happens again, I will carry on talking if Orna drops out. Okay, so also I did my roundup for the year and also my goals for this year. One of which was to carry on looking at the tech changes to come. So I'm looking forward to sharing that again this year. So let's get into the self-publishing trends for 2020 and the next decade. So let's start. Orna, you did a great post which went out on the Alliance blog last week, self-publishing predictions for 2020, which is kind of just for the year. So tell us, what is the overarching feeling before we get into the individual things?
I suppose the thing that I most wanted to say in that post, and that I kind of most like to say as we look now forward at a whole new decade, is that we don't just kind of passively accept the future, and particularly the situation that we're in right now. We've had 10 years of growing empowerment, and so we have more power to reinforce and replicate, but also actually create what's coming down the track, and to encourage authors, I guess, to remember that and to create the change that we want to see by actually taking the actions that will help it to happen. So not feeling that we don't have power, because now we actually do.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, and that we don't just go, oh no, this is happening, but actually get engaged with it, which is why I'm so passionate about this technology stuff, because only if we're engaged with it can we actually have a voice in what's going on, rather than just going, oh no, like with the blockchain stuff, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But, you know, you really got into that and did the blockchain for authors paper, and giving us a voice in that space, which is going to become more important. So let's get into the list. So number 1 trend, global reading grows.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're already seeing that trend over the past number of years, and it is picking up. And people who are concentrating on the growth that's happening outside of the US and UK are doing well. And that over Christmas, Amazon has just included in its advertising dashboard now more countries outside of US and UK, but this is much, much bigger than Amazon, and there are a number of people in the space. And I think it's worth remembering that people outside of US and UK read quite differently. You know, there's a whole stage in the self-publishing process that a lot of self-publishing writers who they missed the intermediary bit with the readers. They just went straight into mobile reading. And as a result, you know, I think it's important for us to get outside our own mindset and how we read ourselves. It's important for us to experience digital reading as a reader and as a user, but then to expand our thinking about that. And I know you have some interesting thoughts about Android and our you know, we as creatives tend to love our Macs, but
well, we as creatives in a certain number of countries love our Macs,
exactly.
but this is an interesting thing. I haven't written it down here, but it's something like 76% of the US is on iOS, so the Apple mobile devices, but the same percentage in the rest of the world is Android, because of the cheaper devices. So if you think that the majority of the world is on Android, and for example, Google Podcast is now a default app on many Android device, you know, types, Google Books, which we know we'll talk a bit about, hopefully is going to have a renaissance. You know, there are some really interesting things happening with the Google ecosystem. I did want to add that I have now sold books in English in 136 countries, which is very, very cool. Yeah, I was really, because that was 86 this time last year. That's a lot more countries in 1 year, and that's all in English. And also the stat that by 2025 we're going to have another 1 billion internet users, you know, middle class. And if people know Hans Rosling's work, Factfulness, that's a book recommendation for how good the world is now. Basically, you know, the majority of the world is, you know, moving into the middle class, so we've got people who are able to buy books. So that is pretty exciting. I think global reading grows. If your books are not available on the Google Android ecosystem, especially with voice search as well, then maybe this decade is time to think about it.
Yeah, and want to put up the priority list if it isn't there, to put on the priority list. Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, second one, number 2, publishing networks decentralize and distribute.
Yeah. So at the moment, we have a situation where the vast majority of self-publishers are on one self-publishing platform. And that's definitely going to change, I think, in the next 10 years. And again, this is one of the ones that I think where authors can have a real influence in terms of switching readers from where they think about buying their books and bringing them across basically to their own website. We'll talk a little bit more about selling directly in a minute, but also that we will see more platforms which will make it possible to distribute. And I think understanding the value of our copyright and understanding the value of non-exclusivity. And I was interested, there are two kind of works out at the moment very quickly. Dracula, and there's a new series on TV, but I'm reading, I've just finished reading Joe O'Connor's book about Bram Stoker, who's the author of Dracula, and it was his wife who actually fought a copyright battle for the rights to Dracula. To that's how her family and the estate made money from Dracula, because she essentially took to court her right to have that. And in those days, you had to produce it as a play to get your copyright. And the fact that we don't have to do that anymore is down to her in no small measure. Also, I saw the new Little Women, and there's a scene at the end where she stands out for, they put it into the movie, where Louisa May Alcott, or Jo in the film, stands up to her publisher and keeps the copyright, which he tried very hard to buy out for $500 at the time. So understanding and knowing the value of copyright, and the fact that, you know, we're not really truly independent if all of our options are tied up in one place. And I think there are moves in all sorts of ways. Blockchain, which we're going to talk about in a minute, takes that one step further, moves it from being into being a distributed network. So I think what the message is to start thinking about the ways in which you reach your reader and how you bring your readers to you. So, for example, if you're paying for Facebook ads to bring your readership, which you have invested in, to somebody else, and not getting an email address, and not building your own asset, that maybe, again, it might be a priority this year to turn that around and to begin to think about each reader as being an asset for your business rather than an asset for somebody else's.
Yeah, and we're going to come on to diversifying business models in a minute, but just to stay on the publishing network. So we've seen just before Christmas, we're not going to do like newsy stuff, but Overdrive, the library system, was sold by Rakuten, who also owns Kobo. So, and it was sold to a like a hedge fund type investment company, which puzzled me greatly that Barnes and Noble also, and Waterstones, owned by a hedge fund, different one. I'm like, what are these investment companies doing buying the book businesses? Now, we should be encouraged by that, I presume, because they assume they're going to make money from them. But equally, these types of companies do not run book businesses for the long term. They're generally in it to make money in other ways. So this is a fascinating news. And you actually put in your article that you think Kobo might also go that way. Any thoughts on thinking a decade ahead, like who might be the people standing?
I think we're just going to see a complete networking of this business. It'll go where we will have a few big players, which may be broken up legally, and that may happen. But we are going to have a massive network. And what we need to do is make sure that the author is at the heart of that, of the network, for their own work. So I just think you're going to see, you know, at the moment we have big players, big kind of siren servers like Google and Facebook and so on, and they're very clever and they do what they do extremely well. And they have definitely facilitated freedom for the author community. We're much freer than when we were tethered to the physical system. But it's going to fragment, it's going to break up, it's going to, your reader, the day of being a world famous author where everybody kind of knew you is going to go the same way as when everybody sat down to watch the same TV program. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be far more networked and distributed. That's my prediction.
Yes, and sadly, because of course all of us would love to make that multi-billion-dollar thing, but Lee Child said a few years ago at Thrillerfest, no one can have this career anymore because things have changed so much, but we should embrace that because it's changed our lives. So let's go on to the next one, which is
just before we leave that, we do have a question from Julie, and it's a good question about Google Play. Just, is it easier to go direct to them now? I think it is easier, and we'll get progressively easier. And she mentions that one of the aggregators, Drafted Digital, has dropped going to Google Play. It's still possible to go through some of the others. Publish Drive is one, but if you can and have the time to go direct, do go direct, because there are advantages to doing that on Google as on all of
Yes,
the
and
major
they are going to do another push in early 2020 on getting authors direct. So watch this space to be talked about at some point. Okay, so number 3, author business models diversify. So I'll start on this before you get in the blockchain. One of the biggest trends that is being talked about everywhere is experiences, and how people want to go off, and actually do things together. So it's conferences, it's author events, it's doing not just readings. We're not talking about readings, we're talking about experiences. So at the licensing thing I went to in Las Vegas, they were talking about, could you do one of those locked room things with your mystery, or could you do something more interactive? And one of the things will come up with technology, but the augmented reality potential of experiences. I think I'm certainly thinking of going back to doing some more in-person events around non-fiction books. It's really easy because you can just do teaching or that type of thing. But even with fiction, for example, I could do a walk along South Bank, following the path of some of my characters, and talk about what London means in that perspective. Things like that. But experiences are definitely going to be a theme. Even things like live podcast taping has become a thing where podcasters are selling tickets to attend a taping of interviews, stuff like this. So I think that's really interesting. What are the other business models that you think are coming?
Well, we have a list of 10 business models that kind of are pretty all-encompassing of what you can do now. And I suppose what I was thinking about was that as new technology comes on board, and as we get into this kind of more networked and more personal, which is another trend we'll talk about in a few moments, economy, that the models we're seeing will change and will diversify and will reshape. Exactly how that will be, I'm not sure, but I think you're absolutely right with the experiences idea, and those experiences don't have to be live, especially as AR and virtual reality technology becomes more of a reality for authors. I think we'll be able to think about experiences, and the whole thing is about understanding again your power with the reader, and how much if a reader loves your book, how much they want to actually engage with you, and then what you would like them to do with you. So it becomes a sort of a mutually satisfying sort of experience. So I mean, we've seen poets in the last year or two fill stadium size audiences. This is new, this has never happened before, and that came out of relationships that were built one by one on Instagram through just putting poetry out there. So through content marketing, essentially, if you want to call it that, or through doing your thing and just being the maker, the creator that you are, you can now, if you get it right and you know how to build your readership, and that's the real skill. That is a skill every bit as much. It's a craft and an art, every bit as much as putting a book together. But if you get that right, all sorts of doors open up to you. So I think we will see some very new and interesting things happen that way.
I also think this is important because with the rise of more subscription models, I do think authors will have to do other things if they are doing this full time. Many of us know that already. It's like 95% of authors do other things, but I think it will become more of something you have to do as part of making a living as a creative, will be this, these other business models. So the other thing is obviously we've mentioned blockchain, which is going to enable direct sales in a completely different way, more global sales, more interesting smart contracts that will potentially reward various people in the chain of making a book or a product, or it will just make it easier. Like you and I have talked about doing stuff together, and we have done live things together, but if doing co-writing a book, for example, is still, you can use all the different tools, but if there was a smart contract where forever these micro payments went out without the hassle of having to deal with royalties every month, that would be amazing. So I think we're moving in that. I'm going to say it. We are going to have a solution for blockchain sales and smart contracts that is usable in the 2020s. What do you reckon?
I think so. I do. The challenge is getting the readers over. So, and I think that we're going to see a milestone on that this coming year. If Facebook gets their cryptocurrency up and running, that's going to introduce people to the concept of cryptocurrency, which is the big barrier. You know, it's like when we started selling books online, and people have forgotten this, but there was huge resistance to giving your credit card details. So we've got to get
before PayPal.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons that so many readers are on Amazon is because at the beginning you gave your card to Amazon because you're buying something else there as well as your books and whatever. And, you know, it's just easier to go there to buy your books because they have your details and you don't have to go through the whole hassle of things. But, you know, as e-commerce gets easier and as people trust it more and use it more, readers are much more prepared now to buy directly from an author than ever before. And we're going to see the same thing here. So I think Facebook getting their cryptocurrency going is going to melt that barrier for a lot of readers, and that's the point at which it will begin to happen. And like all of these trends, what we've seen is it's, you know, people are kind of talking about it for a year or two, and then it begins to happen, and then suddenly it really picks up speed if it gets going. So yeah, I'll stick my neck out with you and I say yes.
Yes, that's one. Oh, that's a prediction. And now we're going to have to make sure we're in the first wave to make that happen. Okay, well, so let's move into technology. Just keeping an eye on the time, because this is a pretty big one. The number 4, growing uptake of technology by authors, creatives, and trade publishers. Now, I'm going to recommend a book, and I'm on the ARC team, so I'm actually reading it right now. It's out at the end of January. It's called The Future is Faster Than You Think: How Converging Technologies Are Transforming Business, Industries, and Our Lives, by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. So the future is faster than you think. And, you know, if you listen to us regularly or my show, you'll know I'm pretty well, you know, into this tech industry, and I'm learning something new on, you know, pretty much every chapter. I'm like, wow, I didn't actually realize we were that far ahead with this or that or the other. And that hence the title of the book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, because so many of the things that feel futurist are actually here now. So I wanted to just pick up on one of the big trends that they're talking about, and that I believe, again, I'll put my finger in and say, yep, this is going to happen, is 5G technology is going to dramatically change lots of things. It's going to be a bit like, you know, we just talked about mobile. 5G is just the latest iteration of mobile, which is so much better that it's going to enable things like augmented reality, self-driving cars, lots of technologies that we've been waiting for this to appear. So when they roll out 5G, it's going to have a big impact, and that's going to change lots of other things. For example, if you think that people are going to use much more self-driving technology and won't be actively driving so much, that's going to expand the amount of content that they can potentially consume, which will hopefully impact us in a positive way. So 5G is going to be one of those big deals, according to all the people who know what that means.
Good. I love the teaching potential. I mean, a lot of authors also have an educational bent. It kind of goes with the territory. And I think, you know, 5G is going to be very useful in that regard, in making things that have been, you know, pretty tech heavy and kind of daunting to make happen, I think should be a lot easier.
Yeah. So, for example, if I do my experience of come to Bath and come to one of my workshops, I could also have people who can watch in real time. That's much, much better than the current webinar type stuff because of the low latency of 5G. So I think it's going to be very interesting. So let's the next thing, everybody knows that I love a bit of AI, but this is fascinating because, and I just shared with you on AI trends, the US Patent and Trademark Office is actually seeking comment, and it closes this week as we record this. They're already closing their comments on this. Some of their questions around AI include: should a work produced by an AI algorithm or process without the involvement of a natural person qualify as a work of authorship protectable under US copyright law, which is, can an AI have copyright in a work? And the other question I thought was interesting, because it really relates to us, is to the extent an AI algorithm learns its function by ingesting large volumes of copyright material, does basically the law address this? Should authors be recognized? And I actually addressed both of these things in my podcast in July, and we talked about this when I said, okay, what if I wanted 50% Stephen King, 30% Dan Brown, and 20% JF Penn? I could do that by reading those works into an AI and having it generate something. And this is what these questions are about. So the reason they're doing this, and this is the US Patent, Copyright and Patent Trademark Office. This is a government department. This is not a future technology institute. So the government is thinking about these things, which means it is imminent. What are your thoughts on that, Orna?
Well, it's huge, and there are not, there are no easy answers to these questions. Obviously, as an authors organisation, we would want authors to be recognised for this type of use of their work, and we would like to keep copyright for the humans, but it's not easy. It's not easy to separate these things out. And I think it's really interesting how fast this is moving, because we were kind of engaging with these questions and bringing them up for our copyright bill, which we did in the middle of last year. And here we are already, 6 months later. And as you say, a major government is already making moves. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what comes from this. Anyone who has an interest, please do comment. We'll be putting in a comment. We're not in the US, but those of you who are, please do, let your voice be heard on this if you have an opinion. And if you don't have an opinion and you don't really know what it means, what the implications are, please do educate yourself around this, because it's really important to know about it. It's the first step, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've we'll link in the show notes, but I mean, automated content generation is here. I just a company launched just before Christmas, publishes high quality content in 100 languages within minutes in every vertical and category with natural language generation. And my thought with this, we are both really positive people, and I'm engaged with this because I want to be part of the change. And I always talk about surfing the change rather than drowning in the tsunami. But I run a business, I'm a businesswoman. I have a business head, and I also see money here on both sides. But what I do see is publishers potentially disintermediating authors by so let's take a well-known romance imprint that has had people writing for them for many, many years, who could potentially read in every single one of those books into an algorithm to then generate more romance novels. Why would a publisher not do that? And they do own all the copyright to all that material. So and I know this is also already starting to happen in other places like China, which is well ahead. So what does that mean for us? And we can't look at this with a sort of, oh no, the sky is falling, let's just ignore it. What we have to do is advocate for our rights, but also build a personal brand, which is what we harp on about regularly. We need people to care about us and about us as an author name, not as this ex-publisher or unnamed author.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that is the key at the business level. And then at the level of law, it's all about copyright, which is becoming more and more important. And it's important to realize we're talking about global publishing, but in lots of countries, copyright's not respected at all. It doesn't exist. Perhaps,
but also authors have assigned the rights to a publisher.
That as well. There's nothing we can, absolutely, don't do that, for sure. Don't do that. Limit your term, limit your territory, limit. That's your job when you're having a conversation with a rights buyer. So yeah, there's a lot to think about here, but focusing in on copyright, I think, is the important thing to do at the legal
and personal brand.
and personal brand at the business level.
Yeah.
Absolutely, all about that. Yeah.
All about those things. Then just one more thing on technology, because I think this is fascinating, is neural technology. So both Facebook has bought and we've seen the headlines on this, Facebook, writing with your brain, and also Elon Musk with the Neuralink, which they launched in July 2019. Now, there are already neuro tools for people to use, prosthetics and things, but this is a really interesting, I was reading about this again in this book, and they were basically talking about, why do you have to speak your dictation? Why can't you just think your dictation with your wake word, think your wake word? And this is interesting to me because one of the things that stops me dictating is the fact that I write in a cafe. so I struggle with that because there are people around me. But I think this is I'm going to put myself out there and say that we will not be using neural technology to write our books in the 2020s. I'm just going to go with definitely not. What do you think?
No writer is going to want people to overhear all their thoughts, let's face it. The reason we write is because we put down something and then we get a chance to edit it and everything before we put it out there.
Yeah.
We don't even like talking very often, never mind having our thoughts out there. So yeah, I agree with you. But again, it's super interesting.
And who knows? I mean, seriously.
I could definitely be used for a good plot line in a book at minimum.
At minimum. Well, I mean, you could say, look, it was only 10, 11, 12 years ago, we couldn't even do this. Like, we're talking over the internet. You are not here in my room. I mean, that's crazy. That is amazing. So anyway, that is a future technology. So have you got anything else on the growing uptake of technology?
No, I think that's enough to keep us going for the next 10 years, definitely.
Okay. Next one, number 5, audio becomes integral to the author business. Do you want to start on that before I come back?
Yeah, we kind of, I think we're in the same place, but maybe using different language. But yeah, the written word is one thing and the spoken word is another. And we've seen more and more authors getting involved in audiobooks. And now it looks like that's going to become much cheaper to do. So I think audiobooks are going to become the second format. So it'll be ebooks, audiobooks, print books very soon. Because AI technology is going to make it so much cheaper to create a book. And audio also and I mentioned audio, I didn't actually speak about video because I think fewer authors like video. A lot of authors are too shy for video, but there are those who are using it to great effect. So I think we've got kind of two things to think about. We've got the audio books and video books on the one hand. And then on the other, how we use audio and how we use video in our book marketing for that personal brand of ours to reach those readers that we most want to reach in our new segmented and networked world.
Yeah. And my feeling with this, and I'm very engaged in voice tech, and I just I've got a page now on my website, thecreativepen.com/voice double. You can actually listen to the 2 iterations of my voice double, which is an AI voice synth, like a deep fake using my voice data to train an AI. It's not available to purchase as yet, but it will be at some point. And in fact, I'm going to say that I will license my voice in the 2020s. And this is why I think audio will be ubiquitous. So what I mean by that is every single thing that is in text will be enabled for audio. You will just be able to pick a voice and it will read it. I mean, there are things like natural readers, which, already can read any text. Obviously, people for accessibility can already do this, but this will be, it will just be everywhere. So, and I think the costs for audiobooks are coming down so much with potential of AI voices that I think I'm pretty much going to wait myself for books I'm not narrating, because I'm so confident that we're going to have much cheaper audio production in the next couple of years. This is not and this is to say, as a narrator, and if you're a narrator listening, I think again this is about voice brand, this is about personal brand, and making sure your voice is not licensed by the people who own the recordings of your voice, and actually making sure that you can profit from this change in the environment. Because obviously, again, it's a bit like ebooks. But we didn't have any, and then we got lots of them, and they're everywhere, and every single print book should have these other formats. But and this is what I think is going to happen to audio, but we need to make sure that people can still make money from it. So that, again, this is the the kind of knife edge of, yes, we want more audio, but how do we pay the creators or the other people? And I'm very excited about this because it means we can also play with audio much more. So I'm listening to World War Z at the moment by Max Brooks, which is, in each chapter is a different voice, which is so expensive to do, hugely expensive to produce. But if we can do that with AI voices, we can produce creative projects in a much easier way. So I'm quite excited about that.
I really like it too. I mean, I love the idea that there will be a voice like mine, better probably than mine, that can read my stuff without me having to sit in a sound room and narrate it, because I don't enjoy that process at all. I like it as an editing process, but aside from that, I don't enjoy it. So I really love the idea that will become possible. And yeah, I'm kind of going to sit on it now on audio just for a while and just see how soon that sort of stuff becomes available, because I think it's progressing again really super fast. I loved your voice. And I thought it was amazingly good, not 100%, but really not far off. I could listen to it, I think, no problem.
Exactly. And it does sound like me. And China, again, is ahead. Baidu has a voice synth that only needs 3.7 seconds of audio to synth a voice. So this is now, people, like, this is what I mean. This is not very futurist at all. What, again, we'll have to check. This is what I mean, possibly the biggest upheaval in copyright and licensing law is coming in the next decade because of all this stuff. Because at the moment, there is no audio rights. For example, one of the things I posit in the book is I don't want to have to listen to American white male always narrate the business books I listen to. Why can't I listen to Irish female or Nigerian, young person or whatever to listen to the? Why can't I choose the voice per book? And I think that's coming too. It has to. I can do that for Netflix. I can choose all these different languages, all of that. So I think that would be another pick. You didn't quite put that down, but it's involved. This will be a huge upheaval in copyright and rights licensing.
Absolutely.
Okay. 6, growth in personal publishing. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, we've been alluding to it the whole way through, and we're always kind of talking about it at some level. So there is the personal branding thing, which is where the marketeers kind of begin the conversation, but actually it begins further back in terms of, for the creative. I think we begin to think, as we are creating our stuff, about who's going to buy it, what our unique selling proposition is, why us, why would a reader buy what we're offering, what is our very particular thing that is going to be attractive to them. And, I think in the past, and I think people still do, and sometimes you do it because you have to do it, you just sit down and write what you need to express. But once you become a self-publisher, I think that changes to some degree or totally, where you begin to think much more about what people need and what people want from you and what you can provide and how you can provide it. And there is a whole growing in that never stops. So that's what I'm talking about, beginning with the whole thing of, where are my readers? How do I connect with them? What is my value to them? How can they help me to grow? How can I grow my readership? And I think, it's part of it. It's an essential skill for us to grasp now. And you can see, as you look around you, that the people who are doing well and who are selling well and who are building this kind of sustainable author enterprise that we talk about, something that's long-term and that you own. The people who are doing that have nailed this. They've worked it out. And the only way you can work it out is by actually doing it, by publishing, by putting it out there, by getting the responses, by refining, experimenting, exploring. So it's a process that goes on and on. It doesn't stop, but it is really important. And I think this is a trend that has already started, but that it's going to become the situation that if you don't nail this skill, if you don't actually understand this, you're not going to succeed. It's going to be the people who guess this and do it well, who are the people who are going to get that readership that keeps them going for life.
And what I kind of took this as a different angle, which is the global trend in self-expression, and that kind of like if we talked earlier about the rise of a middle class, when people are just scrambling to get food and look after their kids or whatever, they're not gonna be sitting down reading some fiction or writing their memoir. But what we're seeing is a rise in the time and the ability to create more, and we're going to see this again with an extra billion on the internet. Who knows what this extra billion is going to create? I think it's amazing. And I talked about this with Mark Dawson last year. We were like, it's so easy to feel like the self-publishing movement is so far on, but for most people it has not even started yet. And so I think that is also part of the growth in personal publishing. We're probably not even seen 1% of the potential of creatives and authors in this new world, aided by technology. But also what that means is you might just do it for personal reasons, and that's okay. You can create your memoir just for the fun of it. It doesn't have to make any money. So I think we're going to see more of that.
Yes, absolutely. And as a result, we're going to see more diversity in publishing, I think, which is something that, white middle class publishing has been talking about for 40 years now, and want to fix from the top down by, it just doesn't work. I think just give people the tools to express themselves, and that includes.
And they will.
Yes, it includes though the education and what Virginia Woolf called a room of your own, and the income to be able to sit down and do it. But as it grows, we grow together, authors and readers. We are the same sort of body. We are an ecosystem that is completely dependent one on the other. And lots of people who write, nobody reads more than writers read. So, of course, there will always be readers who don't write. But as expression in the written word grows, so does readership, I think, inevitably. So it's all of that I find very exciting. And you can see now that corporations are doing the same, businesses are doing the same. They're taking over their own publishing. They're setting up publishing programs. They're getting involved in social media. So publishing, the written word, is becoming ubiquitous as well as the spoken word. So all good, positive trends for those of us who have managed to get the skills together.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then number 7, author empowerment. So we talked a bit about this, I think, at the end of 2019, but what do you see this, where do you see this going, I guess?
Well, I think it's kind of why it's important, I think. Writers can suffer from a lack of self-esteem. It's, that whole exposure thing. And sometimes, you wonder where this drive to create comes from. But actually, we're far more powerful than most groups of people, and we can really make change happen. And we're part now of this kind of global maker movement. Independent creators are becoming a force in every industry. People want the personal touch. They want the small, the real, the authentic, the personal touch. And so that's really great for us. I think we're part of a trend that is growing. And what makes our business unique is that we're not just every creative business. The creator is not just concerned with profit. We want to balance. Sure, we want profit. We have to have it to keep going, but we balance that always with a sense of passion, a sense of mission, a sense of purpose, and balancing those two things is exactly what our world needs. The reason we're in such trouble as a planet, and politically, socially, is we've got completely out of balance around this whole thing of profit. And so I think if creatives and authors particularly, who are, putting out the ideas out there, as a truly empowered creative class with a kind of sense of our own significance, so that we don't throw away our copyright, so that we're not on our knees saying, publish me, please. I think we could make a serious shift in how business operates, and that would make a shift in how everything operates. So I know it's possibly sounds utopian or idealistic, but I really do believe that, grasping that is something that our community needs to be thinking about at least.
And I think the education is so important. We see a lot of authors still not understanding, even the basics of copyright. And in fact, it's funny, I listened to your interview with Rebecca Giblin which was an Ally Basics podcast last year. And I don't think it was basic at all. But this is the thing, authors tend not to know these things as basics. And to be empowered authors, we have to know the value of copyright, and to also understand that value doesn't just get expressed by one ebook sale on Amazon, that's where we're talking about this whole ecosystem of products and multiple streams of income. And I agree with you on the one hand about the profit thing, but we also, in order to talk to people in that area, we have to understand the profit motive and why, and to also, like I'm seeing about the disintermediation of some authors with some niche publishers, what the profit margin will do if we don't engage with discussions around that, so that everyone can make a living without screwing over someone else.
Absolutely. And it comes back to valuing ourselves. We can't value our copyright if we don't value ourselves. We can't value ourselves and our work if we haven't done the work. And the work includes the knowing who the reader is and the ability to reach the reader, find the reader. That is a skill that is now part of what we do. It takes a long time to become a good writer, and it takes time to become a good publisher, which includes being a good marketer. These are skills that are not kind of won overnight, and I think our community does need more support from the creative industries and education generally, and the literary and publishing establishments. But with those two skills in hand, and when we value ourselves, then we really are empowered. So that's the push that we will hopefully see in the next 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the 2020s, what will not change? Obviously what won't change is we still believe we're going to be here. Orna and I still doing a podcast in 2029. Oh my God. Yeah. That would be kind of crazy. But I've been podcasting for over a decade, so why shouldn't we still be podcasting in a decade? We might be in a virtual environment where you can all join us. That is definitely a possibility. In fact, why don't we even say that? Like, in the late 2020s, I think you'll be able to join us in a virtual space and watch us, our avatars.
Just like a live event to ask your questions properly and all of that, which would be amazing.
And you can wear whatever virtual things you like. Which will be cool. So anything, obviously, we both intend to be around, still writing, still telling stories, still teaching. Anything else that you think won't change in the 2020s?
I do think it's really important to say that the fundamentals of creativity won't change. And, learning your own process, all of those kinds of things, they have been the same since people were telling stories around the fire. They have changed remarkably little and won't change in the next decade, and probably won't change for the foreseeable until, we get the chip in or whatever. So I think, learning our craft in terms of reading, writing, learning the craft of publishing, understanding that, publishing will always be those 7 processes. You'll always need editing, design, all of the things that make a book. They're not likely to change, actually. Technology has not changed those at all. And readers' need for story, inspiration, information, all the things that we have to offer, that's not going to change. So I think that's really important that we hold on to that. It's all about balancing, isn't it? It's like you have to go there with the marketing stuff, with the tech stuff, and balance it with the creative stuff. And it's a very full life when you get that balance right.
It is. And the other thing I think is, being curious and trying things out. Like, to me, that is the only way forward. There is no degree in this stuff because it changes all the time. What's so funny is that with this book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, I know it's already out of date because the moment you write it down, I already have to change something in the book that I sent to you, because things change so fast. So yes, we're both positive about the 2020s, and we'll carry on. We will be here next month. I guess we can't promise 2029, but we will be here next month. We're going to talk about, we're going to step back from the technology and talk about how to sustain a creative life for the long term. Mainly because I've been looking back at my website over 11 years and finding that a lot of people have moved on, have left the writing world, have their websites are gone, companies are gone, and it's kind of made me think, wow, okay, I'm still here, and you're still here, and a lot of our friends are still here, but a lot of people have gone. So what are the things that we can do to sustain that creative life for the long term? And even if people want to leave writing books, the creative life doesn't stop. So yeah, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm looking forward to looking at that thing that doesn't change, and because if we don't get that balance right, we're in this kind of abundance environment where there's so much going on and there's so many opportunities and so many things you can do. The only way you can make the choices is to actually understand your own creative process and how it works and how to, look after yourself so that you can keep on keeping on. So yeah, that's what we'll talk about next month for a total change.
Yes, a total change. And I'll try not to mention anything technical.
Techie or theory.
I'm not sure I'll make it through, but I'll try. Okay, so anything else, Orna, for the Alliance? Or, I guess we're coming up on London Book Fair really soon.
Yes, so the session after next will be London Book Fair, probably. Yes, we have the Indie Author Rights program running at the moment, so we'll have lots of sort of interesting things to report back from on that. And just to say also, if you're on the website and you see any funnies, we are in the middle of an upgrade, so we're not doing it kind of off-scene, we're doing it page by page. So if you find anything strange, come back later, it's probably to be fine.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us. Happy writing, happy publishing.
And see you next time. Bye-bye.